Welcome into another edition of Cavs and Coffee, the ultimate Cavaliers show. Mikey McNuggets and Jason Lloyd coming at you. Jason, the NBA Finals set to tip off on Thursday night, and sadly, the Cavaliers are not part of it.
I've gotten over it. We've had plenty of time now to sort of process everything that's happened. But yeah, I thought they'd still be playing at this point. I thought there was a decent chance that they'd still be going at this point. But we can spend the next 30 minutes talking about all the reasons why they're not.
And that is basically what we're going to do. But we are going to start with a topic that originated from a Bill Simmons podcast last week.
You love you some Bill Simmons.
What do you say?
You love you some Bill Simmons.
Well, he comes up with, he actually does, it wasn't even a topic they did. It was a throwaway comment in part of a discussion that then I like to take and turn it into a bigger discussion. Zach Lowe actually did a whole podcast on this, and I'm going to tell you Zach's answer. I'm going to tell you Bill's answer at the end. But he basically, then this was during the middle of the Knicks series when Indiana beat the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, said, I think I'd actually want to have Indiana's core more than any other Eastern Conference team core for the next 4 or 5 years. And then they debated what's the core, what's not. The premise they came down to was the next 4 or 5 years, which main group of guys would you want? It's not necessarily a young core, but which main group, 4, 5, 6, you could extend the number as however far you want, Jason, would you want for the next couple of years? And Simmons said he would take Indiana over any other team because Siakam and Halliburton together make just $91 million at the max of their contracts. So then Zach Lowe took that and did a whole podcast. Zach is he's a friend of yours. Are you guys friends? Friendly?
Friendly. I wouldn't say we're friends, but certainly know each other. Have spent plenty of time together over the years, and I have a ton of respect for Zach.
He's awesome. Zach is one of my favorite guys to listen to. He does a great job breaking down the game. He did a whole podcast on this, and he said Bill's crazy. He didn't have the Pacers in his top 2. He actually had Cleveland at number 1, Jason. And I'm curious, when you look at the Eastern Conference teams, which core would you most want for the next 4 or 5 years?
Okay. So this is a tricky question for me. I would not have Indiana either. And maybe they just continue to prove all of us wrong and go on and win this championship. But when you say 5 years, that's tricky for me because if you tell me the next 2 years, I'll take Cleveland. You tell me the next 5 years, that's a different answer. Would it shock you if I told you Atlanta?
So Zach had Atlanta number 4. Bill had them, I think, number 5. And they said the longer you look out, the more you like Indiana. I mean, the more you like Atlanta.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So when you say 5 years, I say Atlanta. And I figured like everyone's going to roll their eyes or shake their head and say, how could you? Hey, man, they're young and they're long and athletic. And they're building that roster sort of, it feels to me in the vein of Oklahoma City, just without all of the draft capital that OKC still has to come. And maybe not, I don't know that they have a Shea on that roster, although I really like Risha Shea. But the way that they are just built to be this long athletic team, they're in good shape financially. They got off the DeAndre money, which I think he's a great fit in Cleveland. I know the season crashed and burned at the end, but I still like DeAndre's fit here. But I also kind of get and understand why Atlanta did what they did. If we're going all the way out, 5 years is like 2 lifetimes in the NBA. That's what people need to understand. It is a really, really, really long time. Go back to 5 years ago. 5 years ago was freaking COVID. Yep. Like that's how long ago 5 years is. So
Jazz are winning like 16 games a year 5 years ago.
Yeah. So when you project that far out, 5 years from now, the Cavs are probably in a rebuild, I would say, or close to it. They're certainly going to look much different than as they are constructed now. This is not a team that is going to be together 5 years from now. So I kind of like Atlanta.
It is difficult because the further you go out, I think the answer changes. Zach Lowe picked Cleveland because his premise was you have Evan Mobley, who's 23, turning 24.
Mm-hmm.
He's already a top 15 guy in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Zach believes he has the potential to become a top 5 guy in the league. And when you're looking at cores, you have to start with the pillar.
Yeah.
And he said, of all the young guys, that I think I feel most confident in where he's currently at, where he still has room to grow, and where I think he can get. Then he mentioned you still have Donovan under contract, who's aging, but in 5 years at 33, it's not like he's going to be 43. And I know LeBron's playing to ages we've never seen before. And you have Darius, who's an all-star at 25, who is actually, by the way, Jason, he's up for an extension. He's extension eligible, not up for extension, but extension eligible. And those conversations are going to be fascinating based on his playoff history, his track record, where the league's headed in terms of salaries. But basically said you have 3 all-stars under the age of 28. And I have one guy in particular in Evan Mobley that I think is the pillar of what could be the transformation of the franchise. Some other teams I considered: Orlando, Paolo, Franz. I like some of the young guys. I hate the way they play basketball. Like, I hate watching them play. It is not aesthetic.
Right.
It is ground and pound. Do they have enough shooting? I don't know. But in 5 years, maybe some of these guys can shoot. You look at Atlanta. You didn't even mention Jalen Johnson, who's my favorite of all the Atlanta prospects. Reese Shea is great, but I can't stand Trae Young. I just don't think he's a winning player. So if he's in the fold, like, they were an immediate no for me. Boston, you still have Tatum and Brown, who in 5 years, I know Tatum's coming off an Achilles injury, could be back, and they're both going to be in that same age range as Donovan Mitchell, even slightly younger. And if you have those two, you have a chance. And Indiana, Halliburton, young. Siakam's a little older, but he's not like he's ancient by any means. You have Nembhard, Neesmith, a great coach. They're under better contracts. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer here, Jason. Like I think you could make a compelling case for any team. My gut tells me Orlando's the right pick because of the Franz, Paolo, Suggs, plus all the lottery guys that haven't gotten enough chance to show whether or not they're a true player or not. And I think you can make some trades if you're Orlando by bringing in some shooting and playmaking that can unlock your 2 playoff caliber stars in Paolo and Franz. But I think it is also hard to discount the fact that the Cavs have a guy in Mobley and 2 other all-stars around him. I don't know. I'm waffling here. I'm waffling.
Here's a big issue for me on why it can't be Cleveland when you're going 5 years out. They don't control their own draft for the next 5 years, and they are very, very limited in terms of first-round picks. So it can't be. Again, you tell me 2 years, I'll take the Cavs. Even with the way the season ended, I'll take Cleveland over Indy, over Atlanta, over Orlando, over all those teams if we're talking the next 2 years. But when you go 5 years out and the fact that they not only don't control their own draft, a couple of those years, they've got the worst pick of 3 teams in the first round, the couple of first rounders that they do
Atlanta
have.
in one of those.
What's that?
Including Atlanta.
Including Atlanta. Yeah. So I just, the lack of draft, that's why that's why Oklahoma City is like a phoenix rising from the ashes that I mean, they could be good for a really long time, in part because they've got a ton of obviously really young talent that plays the right way. That's a really good team. And all of the picks that they have, the war chest of first round picks that they still have to come, they can just keep building and retooling and adding to this thing. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, Sam Presti's been waiting for a moment like this in terms of the Giannis trade. And the more I think about it, while that is still could be true, I also think that they're just stacking these picks so that as guys become too expensive, they have the means now to replace them.
Yep.
And you don't have to live in second apron neighborhoods. Most teams, you build your core, you get really, really expensive, you compete for a couple of years, and then you have to take a step back and tear it down. And they have this thing at a spot where they may be able to just keep going if they keep hitting on picks like they do, like the track record indicates. They can stay at the level that they're at for a really long time.
Yeah, it's crazy. They actually had a lottery pick last year. Topic was his last name, who, had he been healthy, would have been a top 5 pick. And he was not healthy, has not played all season. He's going to join OKC next year. On top of the 2 top 15 picks they have in this year's draft, if they decide to make those picks, knowing Presti, knowing their roster, they're probably going to trade one of those first-round picks for 2 first-round picks down the road and keep the bundle moving. In both podcasts, Zach Lowe's and Bill Simmons, they said it's not even worth discussing the Western Conference, because it's OKC and then it's a gigantic drop off and then it's everybody else. There is no back and forth. But Jason, we'll end this topic on this. If you strip down and strip away all the outlier factors here, draft picks, salaries, and you just look at the core. So if you were starting the fantasy world with just the core players, is Cleveland in your top three? I understand why you said they're not your number one choice when you do consider them. But if you strip out future assets, future picks, the money implications, is the Mobley, Mitchell, Garland trio core, if you want to add Allen Hunter, however you want to define it, would that be your number one based on just the players alone?
Yeah, it probably would be. I do wonder and worry a little bit about how Donovan is going to age. I don't know that he's going to age gracefully, just for a variety of reasons. So I wonder how he's going to look on the other side of 30 and what kind of player he's going to be. And the Cavs have some big decisions to make on that here coming up. But because of the youth of everyone else and because of their skill level, I probably, if you want to strip out all those other factors and just look talent for talent, yeah, I probably would make it Cleveland.
Yeah, I think I would too. And I had Orlando number one. I think I'm going to end up siding with Orlando. But when you take the other factor, and I don't know Orlando's cap sheet as well as I know Cleveland, so someone may comment and say, they're a second apron team next year. What the hell are you talking about? Hand up my bad if that's the case. I apologize. But player for player, knowing what Mobley is, what he can become, and having a weird amount of faith in some of the player development that Cleveland has proven over the last couple of years, I think I would take them at 1, Orlando at 2. But when you consider them, give me the Magic, give me Paolo, give me Franz. I'm a sucker for big wings. And those two, if Franz can develop a three-point shot, Jason, which he had in college, by the way, it just mysteriously disappeared in the NBA, that unlocks so much more for their offense. But we got something else to get to, Jason, and we're going to do that after a quick word from FanDuel. The NBA Finals tip-off Thursday night, Thunder versus Pacers. Nobody saw that coming except for FanDuel. And if you had bet on the Pacers at the beginning of the playoffs, you would have gotten 28-1 odds for the Pacers to be the Eastern Conference representative in the NBA Finals. If you want to hit on some serious long shots like that, head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS. They got a new promo going on. New customers right now, if they have not joined FanDuel and joined using the FanDuel.com/UCSS link, they can place a $5 bet. If their first $5 bet wins, they win $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. So I mentioned those Pacers, Jason. Pacers have broken the Eastern Conference. They beat the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. A day later, Tom Thibodeau's fired. They beat the Cavaliers in the semifinals, and now people want to drop a nuke into the 64-win Cavaliers roster, locker room, front office, and blow it up. They beat the Bucks in the first round, and now Giannis wants out of Milwaukee, reportedly. So kudos to Indiana. They have completely broken the Eastern Conference. Before we get into what we learned from Indiana's run through the East, I wanted to ask you this. Thibodeau was just fired in New York. And the last 2 times Thibodeau's been released from his head coaching gigs, he's either gone to TV or immediately taken another head coaching gig. But for the sake of this discussion, let's say he's not a candidate for one of the open jobs for one reason or another. If he was interested in taking an assistant coaching job, do you think he'd make sense on this Cavaliers bench? Considering the fact that they may lose 1 or 2 of their top assistants to other head coach openings across the league?
I mean, in a vacuum, sure. Yeah. I just don't think it's realistic. He's 67 years old. He hasn't been an assistant since Boston, and that was
2010.
Yeah. 15 years ago. The only way that I could ever see that happening would be if he had a deep relationship with Kenny Atkinson and wanted to come back and do something like that. But to my knowledge, that isn't the case. He can go do TV, work half as hard, and make quite a bit of money doing that. He was on sets. He was on ESPN prior to, and I would imagine he'll go back to that. I don't see him going into an assistant role with any team. I think he's well past that point in his career. Again, unless you just have such a deep relationship with a head coach or with a coaching staff that it would be fun for you in a way and, give you something to do type situation. I don't think he's at that point, and I don't think that relationship exists. So no, I don't think it's happening.
It's definitely unrealistic. It is a 0.001% chance of happening. But just in a theoretical world, Jason, you combine the defensive mastermind, Thibodeau, with the offensive guru of Atkinson, and you kind of get the best of both worlds. I would love to see where they meet in the middle of resting guys versus playing guys. Talk about two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Kenny was the ultimate rest, load management, make sure guys are ready for the postseason. Indiana blew that out of the water. Thibodeau is the ultimate, we're going to play our starters 52 minutes in an overtime regular season Tuesday night game against Milwaukee because why not? They get to the playoffs by the game 6 against Indiana. Their guys are gassed. So there's no right or wrong answer in how to prepare, but it would be fun in a hypothetical world to see Thibodeau, who, by the way, won a championship in Boston as their defensive coordinator, who's regarded around the NBA as one of the smartest defensive coaches in the entire league. Ironic that they traded for Cat and Brunson, two guys that play absolutely no defense, and that eventually was their downfall. However, it would be a fun little experiment to see, what's it, oil and water, the two that don't mix?
Yes.
You just want to talk about two guys with completely different styles that have had, varying levels of success throughout their coaching career. Thibodeau's been a head coach much longer than Kenny has, but it would be I would love to be a fly on the wall and put a camera in the coach's office meetings when they're going over, all right, Donovan played 32 minutes last night. Should we give him a rest day? And Thibodeau just stands up, slams his hand on the table. Are you effing kidding me? 32 minutes. Mikal Bridges woke up at 32. I would very much be in favor of those two being an odd couple in a reality TV show setting for the Cavaliers next season.
Yeah.
Won't happen, but it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't see it. Dan back in the day, Dan loved Thibodeau. He loved Tibbs. I think he would have loved to have him as his head coach at a different time in a different place, but I don't see that happening.
So let's talk about Indiana running through the East, Jason. As I mentioned before, they beat the Bucks. Giannis reportedly is open to being traded now. They beat the Cavs. The Cavs are at least listening to offers for two of their four core four players. They beat the Knicks. The Knicks now have fired their head coach and may be looking for some roster changes as well. The Cavs rested guys in the regular season, got outworked and out-tired, gassed against the Pacers. The Knicks played their guys 50 minutes in the regular season. By the end of the series, they were worn down, beaten up by the Pacers, and completely gassed. Brunson in the fourth quarter of Game 6 looked like a shell of himself from being hounded for 94 feet by Nesmith and Nembhard, who played excellent at different points in that series. Jason, are we able to take anything from this Indiana run and maybe apply it to what works in today's NBA or not? Or is this just an Indiana team that's playing out of their mind and is way better than we gave them credit for?
I think that's a lot of it. I think that they are on a heater. I think that they are better certainly than I gave them credit for. They are. Although you and I did pick them to beat the Knicks, I wouldn't pick them to beat the Thunder, though. I do think OKC is going to win this series. But I think that this is a style that is unlike any other team plays in the NBA when you talk about how fast they play. I guess OKC plays pretty fast too. But I just think that Indy, the way that they can sustain it for as long as they do is but they didn't just get there overnight. And give Rick Carlisle credit, because Rick didn't coach this way in Dallas. He didn't coach this way in Indy earlier in his career.
Detroit.
Detroit.
In basketball with Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that I'd love to have a conversation with them. I don't know if they saw the talent could do this, or if they wanted to do this and find the talent to match it. My guess would be the former. I think that they realize what they have and they built a system around the guys. And so I don't know that it's really applicable. I just think that they just play such a unique style that it sort of catches teams off guard when you got to see it night after night after night after night for 2 weeks. Because again, NBA postseason and NBA regular season are like two different sports. And when you see the Pacers once during the regular season, you don't get it. You don't quite feel it as much as you do when we got to witness it for 2 weeks straight. Well, not quite 2 weeks. And having to play that way, the way that they force you to play night after night after night. So I don't know. I guess the long answer to an easy question or to a short question is no. I don't think that there's anything that the Cavs can look at the Pacers and take away because they're built totally differently. They have completely different styles. I just think you have to have a lot of respect for the way that the Pacers play.
Before I answer that question, Jason, I was trying to think of this last night. I think this comparison is pretty appropriate. The Pacers are like Oregon, back when Chip Kelly was at Oregon. And they didn't have the elite talent. This was pre all the NIL funding from Nike. This is when Chip Kelly was turning Oregon into a powerhouse. They played that spread option, super fast tempo. And Chip Kelly said, when asked, hey, why are you going to this style of offense as opposed to what's worked forever? And he goes, we don't have the talent or the size up front to line up with these bigger schools and play them smash mouth football. We have fast guys. We have speed. We have to utilize our talent in different ways. It was like when the spread offense just came to college football, Oregon or not. MAC schools, Ohio, Kent State, Akron, they can't line up with Ohio State. But if you spread them out 4 wide and try to use your speed to create angles and advantages, well, then maybe you have a chance. And Chip Kelly was good and became great when Marcus Mariota came to town, right? He needed the perfect quarterback that could execute his offense. And maybe there was someone before who I'm forgetting, but I think that was the pinnacle of those Oregon years. And Rick Carlisle looked at his team and said, I can't play this methodical ground and pound style of offense when I have a point guard who wants to run and I have a center in Miles Turner who isn't a post-up threat. He's more of a shooter. So what do I have to do? I have to change my entire offensive philosophy. I'm going to go to something I've never done before. And he found the perfect complement to how he wanted to play in Tyrese Halliburton, who likes to play that exact same style. And sometimes you need a coach and you need a catalyst. Doesn't have to necessarily be your point guard, but it needs to be a catalyst that see the game and see the floor the same way. And I think Halliburton and Carlisle right now are seeing basketball in the exact same plane, which has led them to have this incredible run, not just this playoffs, but last playoffs too. And when you play a team 4 to 7 times in a 2-week stretch, Jason, it is difficult. Like you play them once, and I remember when the Pacers beat the Cavs for the first time this season, we came in on UCSS the next day. We're like, they can't full court press them for 7 games straight. It's a 1-game spinoff. They were more physical. They beat them up. It's 1 game, though. Who cares? And the Cavs came back and beat the Pacers next week, and we just dismissed it. But when you see a team like that, night in, night out, night in, night out, and when you blow your entire load in game 2, trying to get that win, lose all your energy, lose your legs, like there was no coming back from that. Same with the Knicks losing game 1. So very long-winded answer to get to this. I do think there is one particular thing the Cavs can take away from Indiana. And that is when you're not making jump shots, you have to start playing with more pace. And not just, let's get the ball over half court quicker. But if a team makes a shot, get it out the rim and run. And you have to be able to generate easy buckets in the playoffs. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, Jason. I meant to look it up. I totally forgot. How many times do the Cavs have an easy run out in the playoffs? Top of your head.
Not many.
The one I remember, Donovan had a steal and then got blocked by Miles Turner on a layup in game 5. Like that. That's the one I remember. They probably had a couple. How many times in that Knicks series did you see New York make a shot, and before the camera could even cut back to the other end of the court, Siakam was down there making a layup? And it completely steals the momentum back. And I thought Cleveland in the regular season did a good job turning defense into offense, and being able to control the pace. But when they went up against the team that made it a priority to play at their pace and not yours, Cleveland kind of withered, and they weren't able to sustain some of those runs. So I'm hoping next year they're going to shoot a lot of threes again. Like that's going to happen. The Cavs aren't going to completely change their offensive philosophy that led to 64 regular season wins. But come playoff time, if some of those shots aren't falling, Jason, they have to have a counter. They have to have a secondary option, whether that's playing through Mobley in the post, whether that's allowing DeAndre Hunter to work in the mid-range area to try and generate some one-on-one opportunities, or whether it's trying to turn fast break opportunities into more consistent options. That's what I think they can take from Indiana, because they're not just a 3-point shooting team, and they're not just a pick and roll team. They kind of adapt to whatever the defense is giving them. And I don't think Cleveland did a good enough job in the playoffs of doing that.
So 2 things on that. One, it's really funny you mentioned Oregon, because I was thinking as we were starting this podcast, and as we talk about the Pacers and as we talk about the Thunder, they are 2 teams to me. Remember when I actually went the Chiefs route, when the Chiefs were the Chiefs, when it was prime Kelsey, when Mahomes was taking over the league. People used to say, NFL coaches used to say, like, you have to defend every blade of grass when you play them. And it sort of feels like the NBA game is becoming that, where you have to guard 94 feet. And I never noticed this until you mentioned it. I can't remember. It was one Cavs game we were at. I don't remember. And you said, look how high they're setting the screens. Look how far out they're setting screens. And
Yes, it was against OKC.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started paying attention to that. And it wasn't just OKC that's doing it. There's a lot of teams now that are setting these, that are starting their actions closer to the half court line than inside the 3-point line. And they force you to guard 94 feet. They force you to guard the entire court. And there's not a ton of teams that are equipped to do that right now. And as the game evolves and as rosters evolve, I just wonder if this is one of the next evolutions in the game that we're going to see. But then secondly, on Indy, and listen, they deserve all the credit they've been getting. At the same time, Boston swept them last year in the conference finals when Boston was whole and Boston was healthy and Boston was a monster.
They didn't have Porzingis. They weren't healthy.
Well, right.
He did not even play in that series, to my knowledge.
I meant Tatum more. But when and we saw Boston last year where they were, I joked that they were team ADD and they would lose focus and they would screw around and blow games that they still won a championship. That's how good they were. Indy against the previous Cavs era would get swept. And part of the benefit for Indy right now is they came along at the exact perfect time with this wave of parity and the way that the league is trying to sort of flatten super teams and disband super teams. And, they've taken advantage of it, but their timing is impeccable because against some of the teams that have won championships over the last 10 years, the Pacers would not beat them. But under the certain rules of today and under the structure of today, they've taken full advantage of it. And to their credit, now it's got them to the NBA Finals.
Absolutely. Jason, speaking of the NBA Finals, we're going to give our finals picks after a quick word from Buckeye State Credit Union. If you haven't heard of them, meet your new favorite financial partner. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local institution offering everything from checking accounts to home equity lines of credit and auto loans with some of the lowest rates in Northeast Ohio. Their Cleveland branch is in Shaker Heights, which is one of 5 locations across the state, making it easy to find the one near you. If you can't get to a branch, no problem. They make banking simple with digital banking. What sets them apart? They make banking personal and convenient at Buckeye. Their focus is you. The core values: connect, simplify, and adapt. Guide everything they do, bringing people together, cutting through the clutter, and they're innovative. To learn more, visit buckeyecu.org. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified. Jason, before we get to our last topic, we have someone in the chat named Adam the Bull, who it happens to be his 54th birthday today. So I just wanted to wish Bull a happy 54th birthday. He's never looked better. And Bull, I hope you
got a lie.
Taco Bell breakfast and a Diet Coke with a side of extra tots this morning because you deserve it, birthday boy.
Happy birthday, buddy. It's AJ's birthday, too. It's my son's birthday.
Happy birthday, AJ. Is AJ 54?
What's that?
AJ is not 54, just to confirm, correct?
He sounds like he's 54, but no, he's 15.
Well, happy birthday to AJ. Happy birthday to Bull. We got a little something planned for Bull later in the day. So
is he in today? Is he on today?
He is in today, yes. All right, Jason, let's make our finals picks here. It is the chaos of Indiana versus the frenzy of OKC. OKC fit the criteria that Cleveland fit in the regular season, 64 regular season wins or more, a 9-point differential, average win margin, however you want to define that. And they are the 14th team of the 16 ever in that category to reach the finals. Will they become the 13th team in that category to win the NBA Finals?
Yes. Yeah, I think I'd like to say Thunder in 5. I'm going to say Thunder in 6 just because of the respect that I've gained for Indiana watching them play these last couple of weeks and sort of this tear that they're on. I don't think that they're good enough, though, to take down Oklahoma City. The Thunder play this brand of basketball that they are also very long and very athletic, and they just come at you in waves. And they can defend 94 feet on the defensive end. They have multiple guys who can dribble, pass, and shoot. They've got creators all over the place. There isn't really, when we talk about the Cavs and you talk about Isaac Okoro being unplayable in the playoffs, I don't know that the Thunder really have that guy that Most everyone they put out there is a threat. So for those reasons, I think this is finally OKC's year. Sam Presti's done an unbelievable job in Oklahoma City. He's just sort of left alone on an island down there and quietly goes about his business. And he constructed a team in a previous era that he drafted 3 MVPs and they didn't win a championship. Again, partly because of the era that they were in. And the game has drastically changed since then. And this is, I think, the first of probably a few championships headed towards Oklahoma City.
So here's my favorite stat heading into the playoff and heading into the finals. In the playoffs so far, Jason, Pacers are 12-0 when they shoot 35% or better from 3. They are 0-4 when they shoot below 35%. When the Pacers make a couple of threes, they are very difficult to beat. When they are not making their threes, they are a pedestrian offense. They play with a level of chaos and frenzy that 28 other teams in the NBA cannot match. You know, the one team that I think can match, and not only match, but do it even a little bit better than Indiana can, it's OKC.
Yep.
They have so many I call them murder hornets. Remember those African murder hornets that made their wave a couple of years ago where everyone was terrified to go outside and God forbid they were stung by them?
Yeah.
Lou Dort's a murder hornet. Alex Caruso's a murder hornet. Jalen Williams is a murder hornet. And Kason Wallace is a murder hornet. I also think Aaron Nesmith is a murder hornet, and Nembhard at times can be. But that's 1.5 versus 4, Jason. And when you look at Indiana's offense, the head of the snake is Tyrese Halliburton. He's the initiator of everything. You could put Lou Dort on him, who weighs about 295 pounds of pure steroid muscle, who I think can put anybody. I mean, he's done a better job on Donovan Mitchell than literally anyone in the league, who finished 3rd in the NBA Defensive Player of the Year voting on Halliburton. If Halliburton's a little too quick for him, you could put Jalen Williams on him. Jalen Williams, an all-NBA caliber defensive player who led the NBA in steals. If that doesn't work, you put Alex Caruso on him. I don't know. Alex Caruso is an NBA champion who basically took Nikola Jokic, the 3-time MVP, out of the series late because of the physicality and smarts of which he plays. And then if all that fails, you could go to Kason Wallace. And by the time you go through all 4 of those, you want to talk about Jalen Brunson being gassed in the 4th quarter of Game 6, Jason? You want to talk about Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs being gassed? Try doing what you do at the pace you do that against 4 different guys who are rotating in and out. I can't see a world where Halliburton doesn't wear down throughout the course of this series. Indiana's going to have a game or 2 where they make a bunch of threes. If they make a bunch of threes, they can absolutely beat OKC. I'm also picking the Thunder in 6, and that is more of a respect play to Indiana than it is to what I actually think is going to happen. I'm going to bet OKC in 5, pick Indiana in 6. So hopefully I have 2 shots to be right in one of those regards. Only one helps my wallet. But regardless, everything that Indiana wants to do and the chaos and the frenzy they want to play with, I just think OKC is the one team equipped to do it even better. And they also have the size to match up with the 2 bigs of Indiana. If you want to put Holmgren on Siakam and Hartenstein on Turner, sweet. Jalen Williams is the best 6'5" or shorter post-up interior defender in basketball. We talked about that when they played the Cavs in the first series, and the numbers got even better after that. In terms of expected field goal percentage against in the paint, Jason, the leaders in the group were Mobley and Zubac and Wemby and Jalen Williams. He was 4th in that entire category in the NBA of expected field goal differential. So what the NBA and what the analytics say, this shot should go in 60% of the time. Well, it went in like 48% of the time against Jalen Williams. That -12 was 4th in the NBA. They've accounted everything you want to do. And then one more stat, and I'll end with the stats on this. Indiana has 4 games in this playoffs, Jason, where they have an effective team field goal percentage of less than 50%. They're 0-4 in those games. OKC's done it 7 times this playoffs. They're 4-3 in those 7 games.
Wow.
So even when OKC doesn't shoot the ball well, their defense is so good, they find ways to win. If Indiana's not making shots, their defense is not at that same level. I don't know how anyone could pick Indiana in this series.
So real quick, I want to give you a shout out. I wrote a piece this morning on, it went up, I think it was supposed to go up today on The Athletic, on just the fact that like Indy never tanks. They've never tanked. And they were the team that was caught in the mushy middle for many, many years. They were knocked out in the first round 5 straight years. Nate McMillan got fired because he was there 4 years, and they got bounced in the first round every year. They haven't had a top 5 pick since Rick Smits in 1988. They haven't paid the luxury tax since 06, I think. I'm going off memory on that one. I think it's 06 is the last time.
It's been about 20 years. Whatever the number is, it's been about 20 years.
It's been about 20 years since they paid a luxury tax. They have very much been a team caught in the middle. And they have fought their way out of the middle at a time when the league is trying to flatten the lottery odds, when it has flattened the lottery odds, when it is trying to abolish tanking or at least discourage tanking. The Pacers have sort of become this model franchise of how if you just play really hard, you played the right way, you do it the right way, try and win every game, don't put any thumbs on the scales, and draft where you draft, develop who you get, make a couple of really key trades, make a couple of really smart free agent signings like TJ McConnell, you can get there. You can do it. And now the league is built where, you can. But the one thing that was interesting that I didn't realize that I used in the piece, but I can't put at the bottom, Mikey McNuggets contributed to the story, was the two things that you said. One, you were right. I double-checked it. I kind of hand double-checked it that no team has ever beaten two 64-win teams on the way to a championship. And the Pacers would be the first after doing, obviously, the Cavs won 64 and the Thunder won 68. The last team to beat two 60-win teams and win a championship was the Houston Rockets in 94. So now you're going back 30 years. And then when you add the 64 and the 68, that's never been done. And the other one that I thought was really interesting that you pointed out, I don't know if you found this or if you figured this out on your own.
This is a me thing.
What's that?
I just figured it out.
Go ahead. This is your line. I mean, I stole it. I totally stole it and used it today, but it's your line. Go ahead about the All-NBA stuff.
Yeah, if the Pacers win the finals, they'll, to my knowledge, be the first team to ever beat 7 of the 15 All-NBA players. And Halliburton also made the All-NBA team, so you include him in that. That is 8 of the 15 overall players on the All-NBA team. If you take him out, there's 14. They would have beaten 7. 2 on Cleveland, 2 on OKC, 2 on the Knicks, and Giannis in Milwaukee, which would put a cherry on top of if somehow they can pull off this upset. Vegas has him literally as like the second biggest finals underdog they've ever had. OKC's like minus 800 to win the series, Jason, which is crazy, but I also wouldn't bet on Indiana. Like, I think it's burning money. I think it would be, from a statistical standpoint, like the best playoff run maybe ever. And they didn't have the best player in any series, which is the other crazy part.
Yeah. It is impressive what they've accomplished, what they're on the verge of doing. I don't think they're going to win this series. That's why let's get all these numbers out now, because I don't think it's going to apply. But if they do, it is awfully impressive what they do. And we were talking about the other day. I said, listen, nothing will ever top what the Cavs did in 2016. And yeah, I'm biased because I covered that team. And yeah, I'm from Cleveland and all that. But I think I do a pretty good job of removing emotion and being able to look at things. And to come back from 3-1 against a 73-win team is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I was honored to be there every day to sort of navigate history and record history on that. What this is nothing compared to that. But when you look at the totality of what the Pacers have done, it is very impressive, the run that they're on. And if they knock out half of the All-NBA list by themselves, I have a ton of respect. Regardless, win or lose, I have a ton of respect for what they've been able to accomplish in this postseason. They've certainly gotten everybody's attention. And now we'll see if they can finish it off.
That's going to wrap it up for the Ultimate Cavaliers show. Coming up on UCSS in 2 hours and 20 minutes. I went through, Jason, and found as many recent historical precedents of a team trading a star for pieces, not draft picks. Like the SGA and 38 draft picks for Paul George doesn't really count. Stars for pieces, to see if the history of the league says that's been beneficial or detrimental to the team trading away the star. And I'm going to run those past Bull, Tyvis, and Dustin today to see if history will change their opinion on what the future of the Cavs should be. Maybe it's worked out more often than not. Maybe it hasn't. But you got to tune into UCSS at 11 a.m. this morning to find out. For Jason Lloyd, I'm Mikey McNuggets. If you see Bull on the streets today, honk at him, flip him off, and wish him a happy birthday, because he is officially 54 today. And with that, we will see you in 2 hours and 19 minutes on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Peace.